Bad Moon Rising is the 22nd episode of the 4th season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by David Lee. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about the episode. And honestly, I really hated it. I absolutely hated it. There are some funny moments, and I'll share those in due course. But in general, I hated it for two reasons. One, I didn't like Debra's behaviour. Two, I don't like the fact that I don't know the message they're trying to give. I think, if I were to come to some conclusion, I think they're trying to show that neither Ray's nor Debra's behaviour is that acceptable here. But at the same time, I feel like Debra's behaviour is so bad that it's leaning more towards being in favour of Ray and showing that Ray is in a very difficult situation and it's basically impossible for him to know how to respond. And of course, I'll elaborate on this as we go through the episode. And I feel like the other side is that they're in favour of Debra. And I don't think that's the case, but I think it's possible to read that into the episode. I don't think that's what they're trying to do or what they're trying to show. But I think people could read that because we are seeing Ray being, well, insensitive at times. And I don't like it. I don't think they took the right approach with this at all. I don't like watching Debra's behaviour. I don't think it's very good. The episode starts off with Ray and the guys. Frank comes over, they're watching a game. Ray points out that they need to be quiet and nice because Debra's having hormonal issues. The whole episode is about Debra and PMS, and Frank refers to it as the enemy within. And as soon as Debra came into the scene, I disliked her. Well, not her, I love her as a character, but I disliked her behaviour because immediately she started talking down to Ray about the hamper. He'd put some clothes on the hamper. It wasn't clear whether they were clean or dirty, and she started criticising him for this. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't be reminded that dirty clothes go in the hamper, clean clothes don't go on the hamper, but there's a time and a place, and talking down to him in front of other people, completely unacceptable. And I think the main thing that I wanted to say here before we go further, and I'll give more examples as we go through, is that I'm worrying that the episode is trying to excuse Debra's behaviour and that she can't help it, which on the one hand, yes, fair enough, mood changes with PMS cannot be helped. Well, it can be helped, but it can't be prevented. But, well, maybe with strong hormonal pills, birth pills, for example, can't help. But the point there is that I'm not saying it's Debra's fault completely, but she needs an element of awareness, and it's not an excuse for the way she's treating Ray. And from Debra's perspective, it absolutely is. And I am worried that that's the message they're trying to give. As I said, I don't think that's the case, but I'm not confident. I'm really not sure. And when she leaves, she goes to the bank. The guys suggest that maybe Ray tape records her getting angry at him. And I think it was Frank suggests that Ray gets her some medication to take for her mood swings. And then Frank basically is helping Ray because he worries that Debra will turn into Marie, and Frank says, "There's not a day goes by that I don't wish that there was a comet screaming towards Earth to bring me sweet relief." It's dramatic, but it was a great performance, and for me that was one of the great moments of the episode because it was very well done. We cut to some time later. Ray comes home, he's brought some takeout from Nemo's, and I will say, I'm not completely on Ray's side. There are times when he does things that I think are not great in this episode. He shouldn't have bought the food without consulting Debra first because she already had dinner on. Most of the time, Ray comes home and dinner's cooking or it's about to be served. So he should have known that Debra would have had dinner on the go. So he should have communicated with her. But to her credit, she gets a bit irritated, then apologises. Ray accepts the apology, and he then starts to say that he understands it's not her, it's her hormones. And I feel like that in itself was okay, and I do think Debra was being unreasonable just with her facial expressions. As soon as Ray started to talk, her face basically said, "Are you actually blaming hormones?" And I feel like she needs to admit that PMS can cause mood changes, it can cause irritability and increase in anger and things, and that's fine, but it needs to be accepted, not ignored. And Debra is 100% ignoring it in this episode. But Ray took it too far and started to refer to it as Jekyll and Hyde, which I have to say, as a fan of Jekyll and Hyde, I rather liked. But it wasn't the right decision, and that definitely wasn't the right time to then present Debra with some pills he'd picked up from the drugstore, which he said contained St. John's warts. It's St. John's warts, not warts, but I will now forever think of it as that. And Marie comes over. Debra explains what Ray's been doing, and Debra says, sometimes I just want to smack you. And Marie slaps Ray. Debra had said that to Ray, so Marie slapped him, and she said, it sounds like you're becoming just like your father. And she slapped him again, which I don't condone, but it was funny in the episode. And we have a bit of camaraderie with Marie and Debra. They're pretending to take the pills and then saying, oh, these magic pills will make Ray put his clothes in the hamper and Frank's toenails will be in the bin where they belong. His clipped toenails, obviously. And I feel like they're both ignoring the fact that they're also to blame. Yes, Ray should know to put his clothes in the hamper, but you don't need to fly off the handle and criticize him in front of his friends and father. And it's kind of like they're just completely, the episode as a whole is completely ignoring the fact that Debra needs to take some level of responsibility for this. If she gets like this every single month, which again, not her fault, it happens, she needs to do something about it. And she's not doing anything about it. She's not taking medication, as we know. She's not doing anything healthy or productive to help manage it. And that's on her. All Ray wanted to do in this episode was help her. Absolutely went about it the wrong way. Absolutely. But she just is completely ignorant of that fact. And it's so difficult to watch. And this is partly why I'm so confused about what the episode is trying to do. Whose side are we on? As I said, I think maybe they're trying to say Ray approached it the wrong way, but Debra's also completely unreasonable. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're on Debra's side. And I'd love to know if anybody has any strong thoughts with that. Debra ends up going shopping with Amy. She comes home happy. And Ray, this is when Ray was very unreasonable. He said to Debra that she'd left him to deal with the dinner and the kids, which, he's their father. That's not unreasonable. And he then said to her, you use your ladies' day as an excuse to treat me rotten every month. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think she plans this and uses it as an excuse to offload all of the irritation onto Ray at a certain point every month. But the fact that she doesn't do anything about it does mean that this is going to keep happening. And that's on her. That's completely on her. My favourite bit. This is probably the only other bit. Well, no. The bit with Debra and Marie I liked. The bit with Frank and the comment I liked. This third bit, when Ray said, baloney, I rather liked it because I thought he wasn't going to say baloney, which is the joke. I thought he was going to say something else. And then Ray also took it a step too far. Again, he presented Debra with a tape recording of her flying off the handle, an audio recording. And I have to say, she was very mad in that recording, and nobody would want to be confronted with that. And she ends up crying, and then she gets very angry, and Ray is saying, I'm just trying to help you. I just want to do this for you to make you feel better, etc. And she says to him, and this is also where I get annoyed, she says to him, have you ever thought about giving me a hug? And as Ray tried to tell her, that's not a huggable person. Why would you want to hug somebody who is insulting you and criticizing you and talking down to you constantly, month after month after month? Why does he have to be the one to solve this problem? Yes, again, he could have done things differently, absolutely. But Debra is basically saying, if this does happen every month, not my fault, why aren't you hugging me? Get a grip! This is your responsibility. And she's doing nothing about it, and then blaming Ray when she flies off the handle with him. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And Amy phones and her mood switches, and then she calms down a bit, which again helps to show the unpredictability. How can Ray know what to do or how to approach things when she is so unpredictable? And again, he tries to suggest the pills, and I don't think this was a bad time. Her mood had calmed down. They'd had this discussion. Maybe now is the time to make her realise that she needs to take responsibility for her own mood and her own actions. And she gets irritated again. And Ray hugs her. He does the exact thing she asked him to do. And she pushes him off and storms up the stairs. And that's it. That's the end. We have one more scene with Frank and Marie. I'll talk about it in a second. But that's it. That's how we end the episode. What? Where's the aftermath? Where's the, well, actually, I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have done that. You were doing what I asked you to do, and I pushed you away. this is on me. I need to take action to make this not happen again. And also, here's how you can help me. But also, I'm not going to listen anyway. I'm going to tell you you need to hug me. And when you hug me, I'm going to push you away. Ray has no chance of doing well with this. And it's 100% Debra's fault. Absolutely Debra's fault. And the episode just left it like that. And that is also why it's terrible. Not just because I absolutely hate the questionable position they've taken with this, but I also absolutely loathe the fact that they just ended it like that, with no resolution, with Debra not at all taking responsibility for her actions, and really with no good message about how to handle this, because if the message was, maybe hug your partner, well, what's the point? They're just going to push you away. So it's completely unhelpful. It's very irritating to watch because Debra's just so frustrating. And I don't know what their position is. I genuinely don't know if they're on Ray's side or Debra's side, or, again, most likely, neither of their sides. But Debra has some very bad behaviours. Quite often, we've seen it time and time again when she overreacts to situations. And usually, the episodes suggest that she's in the right. So, again, based on previous episodes and previous treatments of Debra's character, I don't think that they're against Debra's behaviour here. And that makes me think that this episode is all about showing things Ray did wrong and saying, well, Debra's got PMS, it's hormonal, it's not her fault. I can't say for certain that that's the position they've taken, but I'm concerned that that's the case. And because we don't have a scene to wrap it up, to make the message clearer, to show their position more clearly, I'm completely left to guessing. And I think it's absolutely terribly handled. The final scene, quite funny. Frank uses the voice recorder to go to Marie to try and show her when she's shouting at him. And instead, it's just a bunch of recordings of Frank being grumpy and a little bit irritated. So I rather enjoyed that. It was a nice way to pick things back up. But that aside, Bad Moon Rising is an absolutely diabolical episode. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Not just one of the worst episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. I thought they did an absolutely abysmal job with it. It might be the only episode I hate, at least so far. I've seen the series completely all of the way through before. I can't remember a lot of the later episodes, but at least up until this point, we're almost at the end of season 4. I think this might be the only one that I absolutely detest. I never want to see it again. And if they decided to delete it from the season, which wouldn't work, wouldn't happen, I would be honestly quite glad with that. Bad Moon Rising is an absolute mess, and honestly one of the worst things I've ever seen.